we're building our garden raised planter box today, and I already got one of our sides built. This is 56 inches long, and then we want our ultimate height to be 24 inches. So once we cut our studs in the middle, those will be 20.5 inches. That leaves us a ½ inch for our top plate, and that's going to go around the top. So what we're going to do, we already got our 56-inch boards cut. Now we'll cut our wall piece, and I'll show you how to build this wall, and then we'll go all the way around, and we'll continue to show you how to do it. You can kill Pinterest with this. And typically you'd use a speed square. I don't know where mine disappeared to, but you can also use this T-bevel. Slide it up to your flush end and make sure you're making a flush cut. Slide it up to your mark, give it a mark, and that's your cut. Preferable cutting with this would be a miter box. When you're in a small area, you got quick setup time. It's not bad to have a circular saw. Do it again. Alright, I'm going to lay this out like a typical wall. If you're framing a house or something like that, if you're stick framing it. Get these things lined up together. It should be the same length. Now this dimension of lumber is 1.5 inches. So measure 1.5 inches from the end. Make your mark. Slide your square up. Make your mark across both. That's where your stud's going to sit. And for the rest of them, it's pretty easy. If you're measuring from the opposite side, you can do 16 inches, and they'll line up on 16 centers perfectly. So you got 16, 1.5 inches, 17.5. You mark it out. Do that all the way down. That is how you lay out your wall studs, and that should measure 16.5 on centers. I wouldn't use this method if I was building like an 8-foot long wall or something like that. I'd use more of a scientific method because you can get your measurements off this way. But since it's such a short wall, I can stay pretty dang close to my measurement. Get on your ends. 1.5 inches. Square. Boom. You can turn these flat and start dropping your studs in. I prefer using T25 heads, and these are exterior coated, so got a good head on there, good coarse thread, and it's not going to rust on you. These are from Fasten Master. They make a pretty good screw. Now why I'm not nailing is because this stuff's going to expand and contract so much with the different moistures and different chemicals and materials that's going to be inside of the planter bed. So I use screws so it's going to stay tight. Just building our side walls for this garden planter here. We ended up determining the best length in between would be 1.5 feet. So that's what size we're going to build our walls, and we're going to cover it all in these deck boards. just like the other wall, laying it out, marking out your studs on each top and bottom, screwing them together. Straight in through the other side. Make sure your outside corners are lined up, square and plumb on the outside. Alright, I've just cut our sides here. And I measured our total length top and total length on bottom, and we're square, so it's 25 inches. And what I'm doing now is I'm just stacking these deck boards as tight as I can and just screwing them all the way to the top here. We'll have a little gap piece at the top. We'll have to rip one of these in half. But once we get it up there, and we'll do the front. I'm doing the sides first because I don't want any end grain showing to the front. So if you're going to be viewing it from this way back, I don't want to be able to see these end grains. So I'm running them over the top. Some of you may say you should miter them. In my opinion, if it's an outdoor product and it's going to be going through the weather and it's going to be going through the harsh elements, I would say using a box joint is probably better because it's going to last longer and look cleaner for longer. So that's why I use box joints. Unless it's something real pretty, then I'll use a miter joint. But this is normally the way I like to do it. Since we're going to have a kind of a small cut piece at the top here, I'm going to just drop this down, get this level. It's the same measurement as all the other ones. And just take my pencil here and just right on the back. And that's my cut piece. I know exactly how that's going to fit, and so it'll be flush perfectly with the top plate. Just a quick little trick. Rather than taking a bunch of measurements, that's quick. So we showed you how to mark your rip cuts, but we didn't show you how yet to cut your rip cuts. Anytime you go linear with the board, it's called a rip cut. So what we're going to do here is get your saw set. So I have some sacrifice pieces under here. You don't want your saw to be full depth, so you want to change your depth on your saw. Get it so it's just barely touching the sacrifice lumber on the bottom. Set it there. Get yourself lined up, and this is where you might want an extra hand to step on the board on the end, and you'll just slowly push down straight out the end, and you're just following in your line. And why I'm doing this flat on the ground, because I don't want this board to bow at all, because if you put this on a sawhorse and you're going, it might bow down, your blade will start to bind up and it could kick on you. So that's why I'm laying it flat on the ground with some sacrifice pieces under it, so I know it's not going to buck and bind on me. Okay, so on this box we're going to put a trellis wall to match this wall here, just because it'll be kind of cohesive throughout the whole backyard. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting my 2x4 cedar for the length of the back of that box so we can get that same pitch out of it. So I'm cutting it at 82 inches. And why I'm using cedar instead of treated lumber is because, for one, for plants, that if you grow any plants or vegetables or anything like that, the chemicals will get into the soil. And then for two, the cedar is going to last a lot longer. It's not going to split out and rot as easy as a treated wood. So to match this side here, this is 10 foot in the middle and 8 foot on the side. So what I did is, of our 82 inches, I subtract 2 foot, and that's 58 inches. So I'm going to cut the sides 58 inches, and that will be our side cuts. So basically what I'm going to do is the same thing, but for the top. It's the same thing with these corners. just gonna do again a box joint. I could miter these. I think this is gonna last longer. It's gonna hold up to a piece longer. So that's why I'm box jointing it this way. Just lining it up with the outside edge, and then screwing her down. What's going to go inside of this is we're going to have a plastic liner or a mesh liner that's going to go inside, so we're not going to start rotting the wood. Where we left off is we left by screwing this back post in here. Basically, once you got your back post set, leveled, square, you can start. I cut my block about 4 inches on each side, and you just pop your block in each slot, and then that keeps it level all the way up the back. And then you're shooting these on with just a little brad nailer to keep them nice and straight. To get our perfect width, we took a table saw and just ran our 1x4s right down the middle, and that's how we got our widths on our cedar. The project should take you about 1 to 2 days, depending on how available your material is. It should last, depending on your weather conditions and where you are at in the state, probably 5 to 10 years. I would suggest after about a year putting a sealer on the outside of everything, not unless you want it to weather. Like they have this weathered fence, so that's why we aren't putting any sealer on here. If we put sealer on here, it would keep that golden cedar tone. So that's why we left it kind of blank, so we let it age out. And then we're going to come back and stain it all at once.